Welcome everyone. Welcome back to Retail Therapy, the loyalty edition. You have Carly and you have Adam, and we're ready to crack into it today. Today we're talking about loyalty economics. So the profit engine behind what we would say true loyalty is. Every retailer and DTC brand is facing the same reality these days. Customer acquisition costs are rising faster than revenue. Margins are getting tighter. Discounts are eroding profit. The brands that survive the next 5 years will be the ones that master loyalty economics, not just loyalty marketing. Loyalty is not about points or perks. It's about building a financial model where each customer becomes more profitable over time, where the second, the third, and the fourth purchase stop costing you money and start compounding margin. Let's get into the first section, Carly, why economics matter more than enrollment.
Thanks, Damien. Great to be here for this episode. And I guess, spoiler alert, it's a pretty big love of mine. I mean, our business, we have a content site called Loyalty Economics. So I do love this. And I've been very excited about this topic. I think from our side of things, before we discuss even loyalty economics, you need to sort of start with economics. What does that even mean? And sort of simplistically, I guess this is how sensitive is a market to changes in the environment, demand, supply, goods and services, and the impact of price fluctuations, competition, scarcity. Because when we start to understand economics and then overlay the psychological drivers that we use in loyalty and loyalty programs, that's when this gets really fun, right? Because we're starting to influence an environment or a market, understanding the sensitivity or the elasticity of that economic environment. And then what can we do within our loyalty experience and using those drivers to influence a member base, customer base? Loyalty economics defined really is this science of behavior change. And how does that then drive profit? So I do love this. I'm very excited about today. Thanks, Damien.
And is it over to me? Thank you.
Yeah, you got to talk now. Right?
I don't know. It's me to talk.
You usually stop the words, Adam.
I'm just stunned by the economist in the room and very well and eloquently expressed, Carly. I just want to get back to basics here. For me, it's again about framing and context. So, if it's about the money, and it's about the money that the brand or business generates, top line minus the costs equals the profit. And then we can get into the fancy words and specifics. And I'm not an accountant, but Damien, I'm sure you speak about contribution margin and a range of other words, which might need some definition for some of us, including me.
Adam, just the very basic one for me that I use with my clients. It's the money you bank per order.
The money you bank per order.
The thing that gets into your bank account. That's contribution margin.
Adam's going to find an acronym now, right?
Yeah. The money you bank per order, the MBPO. In terms of starting this topic, economics, for me, it goes back down to the finances, then it gets down to profit, and then back the money you bank into the money you put into your bank. But I'm framing it just generally around loyalty programs. So I'm not talking generally, customers come in, they buy, they stay, and all of that, with or without a program. And I think we'll get into some details, Carly, Damien, around the economics of a loyalty program. I think that's my happy place rather than general business finances.
Well, let's get into what we would call now the economic tension. So right now, most brands are losing money on their first purchase because acquisition costs have really overtaken their contribution margin. Basically, the money that they're banking per order, it's costing more than what they're actually getting, that they're paying for that. Without a strong loyalty engine here, these losses really don't get recovered. This is why loyalty is not a retention strategy. It's really what I would say is a payback strategy. It's the mechanism that turns loss-making first orders into a profitable lifetime value customer. And it's that shift that happens that first to second purchase window. If you cannot move customers quickly into that second purchase, the economics really never flip. So you're constantly acquiring customers and you're not retaining customers. So then they can't be loyal. Carly, do you want to get into that, how that works behaviorally?
Well, I think here it's more around that great brands do this really, really well, where they're measuring between first, second, and even subsequently third and fourth purchase and the window. What is the activity they're undertaking to drive this, speed this up where possible? And great brands know how engaged and how active their members are very, very clearly by understanding that window. They can even forecast, some fantastic programs are even forecasting how long their members will stay if they transact again on the second or third purchase within specific timeframes. So you can get really, really clever around this. And I think that's really exciting to look at. And I think the point here is if a member's not, or customer's not returning quickly enough with the appropriate frequency, you can lose them forever. So what is the activity around doing that? What behavior change mechanism are we utilizing to get them back quickly enough to make sure they're happy and feeling good and loving the brand?
Yeah.
I do think we need to create a context. What kind of brand are we talking about here? You know, what are we talking about? A online e-com brand that people buy 4 times a year? A grocery that you go every week? What brand are we talking here? Because as soon as we start talking measures and metrics and money and all of those things and recency and frequency and spend, you've got to understand the context. So maybe, Damien, do you want to share a context for us to actually talk economics rather than generally, but more specifically?
Yeah, look, I think if we go back to second episode, which people probably haven't seen yet, but they'll be seeing shortly, we get into what we talk about the speed of loyalty, what we call fast and slow. And it really comes into the right cadence. The ideal cadence for a loyal customer will change and be different depending on the category, yeah? So, you know, supermarket, as you mentioned, Adam, is going to be different than, say, beds when I was at 40 Winks, you know? Supermarket can be buying maybe daily, maybe every couple of days, and definitely weekly. You're not buying something from a bedroom or mattress or a bed frame weekly, let alone monthly. So it's probably once every 7, maybe to 10 years. So the speed is very different, and the cadence, I suppose the cadence of that. So the ideal cadence for what we would say is a loyal, profitable customer is going to be different. Everything in between, yeah? So supermarkets, beauty, supplements, furniture, luxury items, they're all going to have different speeds. They're not the right speed, not the wrong speed or the right speed. It's going to be different per category and subcategory. So I think every business will need to know what theirs is, and they'll have their own benchmarks because they know what the ideal customer looks like and different cohorts look like for them. There'll be industry benchmarks that they can compare themselves to, but they'll probably have their own benchmarking that they're benchmarking themselves to as well. So it's different for everyone, but ideally there is an ideal speed for first to second purchase, second to third purchase, and third to fourth purchase. First to second, second to third, third to fourth. One of the things we can agree on is that first to second is crucial to start that process and build a profitable, loyal customer. It's kind of the first thing you need to get right and narrow that window, ideally for your business. So the first to second is crucial to actually get someone and keep them. The second to third really seems to be that trigger point where people start to be a lot more loyal, and they'll make a third and fourth, and then the fourth to fifth, and so forth from there. So first one's crucial to get. The second and third one really starts to stick to make them, I would say, what we would say loyal these days. Let's get into the profit model. There are only 2 ways to really grow profit: increase your contribution margin or increase your lifetime value. Loyalty does both when it's designed correctly. A customer who buys more frequently at a higher margin and without relying on paid acquisition becomes compounding profit over time. So you pay for a customer, they come back again, and they come back again. You've only paid them once to acquire them. If you're constantly acquiring the customer, you pay to get that customer every single order you get. So that makes sense. Without relying on that paid acquisition, it does compound profit over time. It becomes quite profitable to do so. And that's really the economic power that I would talk about as repeatability. Every return visit strengthens that model. Every return visit then obviously gives you the ability to make money and to make good money out of each of those return orders or the return visits you have for that customer, whether it's online, whether it's in store, whether it's both in omnichannel. Your thoughts, 𝗂𝗏?
Well, I do agree with you. I'm thinking about it from more of a loyalty specific perspective and how that loyalty experience is undertaken. And I think we're looking at, that, as I said before, changing the behavior in a profitable way. Rewards that people like are great, benefits and rewards in a program that they're really loving, fantastic. But what we're really wanting them to do is how do we get them to do something extra because of these rewards? And realistically, how do we get them to do something they probably weren't going to do anyway? And I think there's a really big conversation around that in loyalty. Are we rewarding people that were going to come anyway? Or are we getting them to do something different they weren't going to do, which is extremely important. And that's that behavior change we talk about, and the shift, and therefore incremental profit. Because if we're not doing something that motivates them to do something out of their normal cadence, then it's not actually incremental profit anyway. And knowing the difference, measuring the difference is extremely essential, because that's where you can quantify this value of the loyalty and the loyalty program, incremental behavior change, incremental margin, and that has to exceed the cost of incentivizing it. Let's be honest, if it is not exceeding the cost of how much it was to actually incentivize in the first place, where's the profit in that? So I'm trying to say it simply and hopefully succinctly, but it's not always easy to implement and measure, but it's extremely important.
Yeah, and then what you're just saying there, Carly, if you're having to nudge them with some other incentive, usually a financial incentive, then you're increasing your customer acquisition costs again. So there's a combination of things that need to work to get that purchase and then get that second and get that third purchase.
And that's the margin understanding. So making sure you understand the margin of the reward or of whatever you're implementing in the program. Do you know the margin of what you're spending versus the extra drive and the extra profit you're driving?
And it's interesting you're talking about incremental. I mean, it's something that is hugely important for every retail role that I've been in, is that, you know, if you open your doors and the lights are on and you're selling online or in store or both, there's a base sales you're going to get. So what are you getting over and above that? And, you know, what are your programs, campaigns, loyalty program, things that your activations that you're doing that are actually driving that incremental revenue, incremental profit. So your thoughts, Adam?
Yeah, I think we're talking around different aspects here. And again, I'm struggling a little bit because I'm just trying to frame it and contextualize it. Sometimes we're talking just behavior without a program. Now we're talking with a program. So a program and in all its mechanics will try and change a behavior that you've determined, subject to the brand or business and the cadence. And as Carly said, you know, are they going to shop with us anyway without a program? So the first thing here is no program. I mean, the context is so important. Are we talking about a brand that's got a program with mechanics and structures to try and influence an outcome? Or are we talking about brands who just are out there doing everything brilliantly, serving their customers, delivering on time, doing everything as they normally do, price, quality, service, and no mechanics? You know, we've got to frame it correctly, because then the financials and the economics change. If you are going to serve up a program and give them a mechanic or an incentive, a cashback, a point, or something which costs you money, then the cost to serve to change that behavior has to be attributed to the financials. So I think this discussion should be a little bit more specific so that I can participate, because I'm struggling here to try and talk general stuff without a context. And
that's okay. So Adam, I think that's contextually for you, with a program, for me, loyalty doesn't need a program.
That's the point I'm making. So first decide.
If I can encourage loyal behavior, repeat purchase behavior, profitable repeat purchase behavior, then for that's my definition of a loyal customer for me. But from your perspective, and I suppose most people that be tuning into this will be in loyalty. They've got some stake in loyalty and they've got a program of some type. So let's put it from a loyalty lens from your perspective on a program.
My comments are definitely more program specific, because I like the idea of what mechanisms are we using, and then hence using the rewards example. I was definitely talking in a program sense, in how are we structuring this and using those mechanics. Adam, that was my view on that one.
Let's keep it within the program.
Program it is. Well, now I'm comfortable. Now I'm not sitting here with the sweat going down my back.
We're taking the shackles off.
And just Damien, I mean, you're not wrong, Damien. You're seeing it from two lenses. So I'm not trying to say that, you're just looking at general, I guess, change of behavior, as well as the option for those brands or businesses who have a program where Carly and I potentially were talking from. So back to program. I mean, I think we now got to get to a conversation around what are the measures that are really important? And I'm not sure if that is coming up soon in one of your next questions, Damien, but
yes.
I think Carly and I have been together in various other scenarios where we discuss and debate what are those genuinely good, most viable metrics for a program. I'd love to open up the conversation if you want to, Damien, on that.
Member versus non-member. It's got to be.
There we go.
I'll just start us off with that. It's got to be right.
And I want to reflect on this one with you, Carly, in a range of scenarios. And Damien, actually, for you, it'd be really interesting to hear your view as well, because It's still out there. And, I know we sound like a broken record, 𝗂𝗏, but I'm still just of last week, people in a room saying our program's going so well because our members are spending this much more than our non-members. And I just say, well, hang on a second.
Head would have exploded.
Heads exploded. First of all, I try to keep it simple and say, so you're talking about they spend more than your non-members. Let's just, first of all, what's the cost to serve them? So you talked about they spend more, the revenue in. So then the question is, how much does it cost you, your non-member, for them to spend, right? So what's the bankable profit on your non-member? And then what's the bankable profit on your member? So now can you tell me if there's a comparison? I haven't even discussed that members generally should spend more because of the correlation causation aspect yet. What are your thoughts on that first answer versus the general correlation causation conversation? 𝗂𝗏?
So we've had this debate a lot. And I absolutely agree with you. And my head would have probably wanted to explode at the same time when you heard that comment. I had a great interview with someone not long ago who did raise an alternate view of this, which I thought was really worth listening to, and why I want to bring it up. So depending on the industry, in retail, in a lot of cases, we have a customer who then becomes a member, let's say in a mechanic style program. We don't have historical data to be able to say that the member to non-member comparison. However, in some of the other industries, either banking and insurance, for example, they may have historical information about that member to know that member versus non-member on that unique ID has actually changed. So I like the view that depending on the data we have and the historical information we have about a specific unique ID, we actually might, in some cases, be able to measure member versus non-member, but you have to do it based on, exactly as we talked about before, what influences have come in to change the behavior of that unique ID. So it can technically be argued, however, it's not easily done and or common.
And again, I'll go back to you're framing it within a context. So you said insurance, and you said this is why the conversation of member versus non-member, everything's framed to a context. The question we should actually ask ourselves is, it's easier to measure, maybe, and again, context, but is it does it really make a difference at the boardroom if I stood up in front of a CEO and said, your members are spending more than your non-members? Damien, let's get back to your BCP, whatever, the bankable profit story.
Yeah, the money you bank from each order.
Yeah. So the money you bank from a non-member versus the money you bank from a member. Damien, what's your view of, without a context and a frame and an amount, of that discussion?
I'm going to be very brave and stick my neck out, probably quite high on this. Hopefully you guys don't chop it off. So for me, member versus non-member, I'm glad you talked about it in that particular sense. There's still a customer acquisition cost. Yeah, which is where you're leaning to, Adam, is like, okay, well, member versus non-member is almost like a nice little vanity metric. You can justify, we have an investment and a team and we spend all these resources and have all this program in place. Wow, look how well we're doing because the members versus non-members, they're so much better. Yeah. But if you compare customer acquisition cost on a member, if you can work it out, per member or work it out per order, versus, a non-member, then are they the same? Are they as profitable? Is it exactly the same when it nets out at the end of the day per order? So then you go, why would you have all this? I'm not saying don't have a loyalty program, but why would you go and have all this infrastructure and costs and extra parts of the business if it's actually not delivering any much more than what you're doing in the business? So
that's the $1 million question, Damien. Yeah. That is it. Yeah. Because why have a program and all the cost to serve for an outcome, a profit? But that goes back to the big question of why in the beginning, right? Goals, objectives, vision for a program. Then we laddering all the way up. But it's very interesting that you bring in the cost of acquisition. I don't know how easy it is to get that data. Sometimes it is performance media and various other. But I don't know your view after being a retailer. How did you actually get the cost of acquisition? Where did you get the data from?
Look, it's actually taking all your acquisition cost for new customers.
And what is an acquisition cost made up of?
All your costs, so basically all your advertising costs. Yeah.
Okay.
So I suppose all your attribution of that's everything that I need to actually spend to acquire a customer. So if I need infrastructure to have that advertising, to then do that ad than even some of that infrastructure. Email marketing is quite cheap and quite affordable for a lot of businesses. Still comes at a cost. It's part of your acquisition cost. I only had a conversation the other day with a fashion label, a DTC fashion label, and we were calculating their CAC, and it was fantastic. We were calculating their payback, and it was really good. But then we stumbled over their marketing costs and said, so you don't do, you do probably about 30% of your costs are paid media. What do you do? How do you do the other stuff? Oh, we do lots of influencers. Well, how do you pay the influencers? Well, we pay them money and we get them stock. And I said, well, that's a marketing cost.
Yeah,
really?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's a marketing cost. So
this goes to different businesses though, an attribution within the businesses, right? Not every business structures in the same way. So marketing's over here, tech is over there. I mean, you could have the debate. Is the tech platform that you're running your loyalty program on, where do we attribute that? So I think it really changes by business as to who's attributing which cost to which department, and is it sits under the loyalty program, or is that over acquisition included, not included? We've had this debate a number of times with clients. Is acquisition in loyalty or not? Or was that before loyalty? So where does it sit? And therefore my profit margin can look really great because I didn't bother to include a whole nother cost over here. And same with tech. Oh, it's in-house tech. Cool. Do we include that or not? So there's debate around, and every business needs to operate differently. That goes without saying, but therefore then your profit structure is different.
Yeah, I mean, you can break it down philosophically into some very basics. I mean, what does it cost to acquire a customer with a program, without a program, combined together? You can actually even have blended costs if you really wanted to understand how efficient you are acquiring a customer, what it costs to acquire a customer, and how to keep a customer. But really, it comes back to the money you bank from each order, member, non-member, blended. You know, are we training a behaviour and getting that behaviour to be good for the customer, but also profitable for us? Yeah, it's, you know, you've got to combine that with getting that right emotional connection, building that community. You know, quite often people talk about, and I've seen done really well with a lot of brands, is that community they can build, and it's like a moat, around their business, around their brand. Yeah, that's another reason to turn up, to participate, to engage with that brand. And it always isn't just a purchase. It always isn't just an order, but they feel that they're in the consideration set. They're at the top of the consideration set when they go to that category or that subcategory. The next section we can kind of naturally dive into here, guys, as we round out this episode, is something I'm quite passionate about, and I know you guys will have a view on it. So what I call repeatability. So I talk to a lot of businesses, ones that have been around for a long time and ones that have been around maybe even 3 months, maybe 12 months. And the thing that I talk to them about, which helps when I've only got like sometimes 90 days of data to look at, is a sign or a signal being repeatability. And for me, that's the percentage of orders from returning customers. So it's like an early signal, kind of going, hey, if I don't have 12-month data to look at and understand what the cohorts are like and what lifetime value is, then I get a signal coming up showing me something. And that repeatability is typically what I look for. So that tells me the percentage of orders that are coming from returning customers each month. I want to know how many orders were from new versus returning customers. If I can get that ratio right, and it's going to change again for every business, but if you can start to get that ratio right, then you're actually understanding, I suppose I would say, a key mechanic of loyalty, or how your business can actually drive loyalty. Because if you don't have returning customers or enough returning customers, then you really don't have loyalty to the brand, or have very little loyalty to the brand from a profitability perspective. So where that really kind of gets to rise, I think that's at a profitable way, then actually that starts to trigger. So, I mean, that happens in programs, That's the whole idea, I would say, of a program, is you're trying to get that repeatability. You're wanting to get another purchase, another order, another engagement with that customer, with that brand, and you're hoping that the mechanisms of the system in place and the flows that you've got in place and the different elements that you have in place are actually encouraging that incremental.
That was a very interesting example you gave of a new to market business, 90 days of data only versus, and I don't ever do programs for businesses that have only got 90 days, in other words, so new. In fact, I say to them, don't do a program yet until you've got a full year's worth of, again, depend on category, depend on purchase behavior. Yeah. But I've had some early stage conversations. I say, no, don't do a program quite yet, unless you know why you're doing it. But if you don't have the data yet, Anyway, I love that example just in terms of framing out what I would not get involved with. But there's so many measures, and I'm not sure if we should do part 2, because I really want to discuss and debate with Carly and you What are the fundamental measures of success of a loyalty program? And it's like another episode, maybe episode 17. In my early days of loyalty finances, I always spoke about the 3 V's: volume, value, and velocity. Volume of members, values, which is spend, and velocity, speed, frequency. V times V and equals sort of a lifetime. And those 3 simple levers: do we need more members? Okay, volume. Do we need value? What's their value? How can we change that dimension? And speed or recency, or how often can we get that extra? So volume times value times velocity, the 3 V's drives the input, the income, and then you've got the cost to serve all of that. But sometimes simple is better because measures can get quite technical. And I think, Carly, and I'm sure you agree, but what are your thoughts on that, I guess, very basic revenue in model?
It's me? Well, revenue in, good. Like tick. Isn't that the objective? Absolutely. There's a couple of things I was thinking, especially Damien, to your point as well. There's this thing we see in a lot of, whether it's program or non-program. A customer buys in a retail environment and they get an instant offer to come to second purchase. That's great and it's exciting. But that does then drive the second purchase, which is part of our objective. Awesome. That's not loyalty yet. That means they're undertaking the offer. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying I don't like the idea, but we haven't completed the objective yet. We haven't created loyalty. We don't have a relationship with the brand or the program yet. We've just initiated a second purchase. So that's fine as long as we're clear on what we're doing. What are we doing? I mentioned this earlier, the incremental trips, if it's travel or experience. Let's say we get out of the retail space for a moment. But also, are we looking to drive multiple purchases, second, third, fourth, but higher margin categories or higher margin products within the store? Because it's great to have people coming back again and again and again. But what are they buying when they do? Can we diversify what they're spending with us and the product mix they're undertaking to make sure that what they're buying is also high margin or higher margin as they move through the journey with us? So there's just a few things I was thinking as you were saying that, and not ignoring your point, Adam. Yes, more revenue equals good.
Yeah. As a business, irrespective of what style or type or how size of your business and how many years you've been around, you got to get that first or second purchase, right? You got to get purchase, all right? So that's crucial. That second or third is that, I suppose, almost, I would say that's like the tripwire, yeah? It's kind of an early warning sign. There, we might have a loyal customer. They've made a second purchase. But that third one, I think that's the start. In my mind, I wouldn't say there's a hard and fast rule, but that's almost like that loyalty switch. It's the start of that switch. It's like the switch is off until that point. It's like, I bought from you 3 times. There must be something I identify or like from you, irrespective of the incentives, but hopefully that then starts to become a habit.
Yeah.
Or an enjoyable habit, or there's a value with that habit. Yeah.
So Damien, it's 3 beds in 21 years. Is that how you would see your customer? I mean, I bought my bed and every 7 years I change it over. So how many one-times purchases of beds, and then 2 times and then 3 times? Again, there's only so many beds you can have, Adam. But you've got your primary bed, you've got your spare bedroom, you might have another bed. If you got, so it's basket of beds,
yes.
So the basket,
But then obviously there's furniture and bedroom
and other things,
other things, and stuff like that, and then top of bed, all that type of stuff.
Yeah,
I'll send you guys to sleep with all the details. But but getting more of that.
Get a furniture list now.
Wallet is a way of obviously doing that. And for businesses that have a really slow speed when it comes to the ideal purchase frequency, make sure you've got your stuff that can be purchased at a much more frequent basis. And you guys would know that in fashion as well. You might have some high fashion, high value items, but if you don't have your basics, your basic t-shirts, your basic things that you can sell every week, every month, so forth, then someone might just buy seasonal and buy 4 times a year.
You see this with retailers, especially through cost of living concerns, changing and assessing their product mix to, as you said, bring in some basics to, I guess, subsidise the fact that not everyone can be buying event wear all the time. And COVID, won't call that out, but that was an obvious one also.
Yeah. So look, if we try to get to the end of this episode, which has been fabulous and has snaked around and done some interesting things, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. And
are you coping, Damien? Is it okay?
I'm getting the hook to bring it in for us to kind of finish out the episode. One of the things that I kind of like, Adam, there's a few metrics I love about, I would say, about loyalty. One of the key ones that I love, and I cheat because I'm a marketing guy, so it's kind of a mix of two. So I love lifetime value, and I'd love minimum 12 months data. And that's where I get really nerdy from a marketing guy's perspective and work out, how's this stuff working? Is this business model viable? Is it profitable? Is it scaling profitably? Is it growing profitably? But again, I'm a marketing guy, so I like the lifetime value, but I like the lifetime value CAC ratio. So that for me actually helps me understand the total profit per customer with their relationship with that brand over a period of time. So that really, I need to have lifetime value to calculate it. I need to have CAC to calculate it. So I kind of cheat. I've got 3. So, but I love that as a really good way of actually understanding how good I am at doing this and how good and profitable I am at doing sustainability in a business. It doesn't need to be, it can be a small business with 90 days data, or it could be a business that's been around for 20 years or 30 years or 50 years. Brands like Amazon and Sephora and others, they do this well because they've got a system in place to sustain value over years, not months. Yeah. How do we encourage that habit? How do we keep reinforcing that habit through various different ways? Thoughts on that before we wrap up, guys?
Yeah, to Adam's point earlier, keep it simple. I think we all like to approach it that way. And if we're thinking about back to the topic we're discussing today, which is, economics, loyalty economics, it's that sort of 3 steps where, define what the economic sensitivity is, like what's this elasticity in our member base or in the environment we're operating in, introduce our behavioral or psychological drivers. That's the fun part of loyalty, I think, what's really motivating members to do the thing we're asking them to do. And that's when we can apply that to our loyalty program design and implementation, because if we can understand those, the environment and what drives the members, we can start to work within the mechanics and again drive the profitability point. So that's my sort of 3 steps or 3 loves of this.
Adam,
what are your goals? What are your measures of success? So why do you have a program? And it's not only about behavior, which it is, but why do you have a program? What are your measures of success? And are those true leading indicators or lagging? So you know what those are. Lagging is just an outcome. And what are the indicators that drive those outcomes? But for me, it's actually back to why. What are the measures of success? And then the how. And the how clearly is you've got loyalty economics and you've got financial models and you've got, go-to measures like lifetime value over CAC, as you say. I'm learning your language as well, Damien. But I'm going to leave off with 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹.
Holy moly.
The money you bank from each order.
I love that. It's a mouthful, but I love it.
We need a dictionary for these.
Yeah, episodes. We do. We'll definitely need a dictionary of all our acronyms. Look, I'll finish and round out this episode. For me, kind of when we look at business through loyalty economic lens, there's really only 2 questions that matter. Are your customers becoming more profitable over time? Yeah, we want this over time. We want sustainability. Or are they costing you more to keep? Yeah. So everything else is really noise when it comes through that. If loyalty is not producing an economic lift, I wouldn't call it loyalty. It's just marketing spend disguised as loyalty, or given the loyalty program name. Loyalty is not a program, as Adam says. It's our mantra. It's an outcome. It's the economic engine that determines whether your brand survives or scales. The brands that master these loyalty economics will lead the next decade. Everyone else will keep buying their own customers back, 1 discount at a time. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Adam. Thoroughly enjoyed this next episode with you and look forward to doing the next one. See you guys.
Thanks, Damien. Thanks, Carly.